Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. Let's just jump right into today's story. Don't forget to give a thumbs up and enjoy the show.
I am Bernette, and I am, as always, thrilled to be here. Every week, I explore the outer edges of human connection. I look at the relationships that make me question where the self ends and the other begins. Usually, the other is another person, a human being with a pulse, a childhood, a set of flaws, and a voice. But what happens when the object of your deepest, most consuming romantic affection doesn't have a pulse? What happens when it weighs 10,000 tons, stands over 300 meters tall, and is visited by 7 million people every single year? Today, I am diving into the world of objectum sexuality or objectophilia. This is an orientation where individuals experience profound romantic, emotional, and physical attraction to inanimate objects. To the outside world, it looks like a bizarre stunt, a headline to chuckle at over morning coffee. But if I strip away the judgment, I find a world of genuine heartbreak, fierce loyalty, and a love that defies the physical laws of human biology. Before we begin, let's all agree that Paris is already doing a lot. It has the romance, the pastries, the tiny coffees, and apparently one very eligible tower. Most people visit the Eiffel Tower, take a photo, buy a key ring, and move on. Erika, however, looked up at this enormous iron landmark and thought, that's a husband material. And honestly, in a dating world full of ghosting, red flags, and people who say, I'm not looking for anything serious, a tower that literally cannot run away starts to look surprisingly dependable. This is the story of Erika Eiffel, a woman who looked at the most famous skyline in the world and didn't just see a monument, she saw a husband. To understand how someone falls in love with a tower, you have to understand how Erika's mind interacts with the physical world. Erika Eiffel was not someone who lacked discipline or focus. In fact, she was a former United States military member and world-class competitor archer. She was a person of intense precision. For Erika, objects always had a presence, a personality, an energy. When she picked up her competitive archery bow, it wasn't just a tool made of fiberglass and carbon fiber. It was a partner. They worked in sync. She respected the bow, she felt in her own way that the bow respected her focus. Psychologists who study objectophilia often note that it isn't a sudden delusion, it's an innate way of perceiving the world. While most of us look at a chair, a car, or a bridge as a tool to be used, people with objectum sexuality perceive a reciprocal relationship. Before the tower, there was Lance. Lance wasn't a man. Lance was a piece of military equipment, a sword that Erika felt a profound protective connection to. For years, this was her secret world. She knew how society viewed it. She knew the words people use. Crazy lady, crazy, lonely, attention-seeking. But Erika wasn't lonely. She felt completely surrounded by the animism of the world. And then, in 2004, she took a trip to Paris. It's a cliche, isn't it? Falling in love in Paris. Millions of people go there to propose under the glittering lights of the Eiffel Tower. They hold hands, they look up at the iron lattice, and they use the structure as a backdrop for their human romance. But when Erika walked up to the Champ de Mars and looked up at the tower, she wasn't looking for a backdrop. Later, Eric would describe the moment as an overwhelming physical and emotional wave. It wasn't just admiration for Gustav Eiffel's engineering marvel, it was an immediate, crushing, romantic attraction. She looked at the sweeping curves of the iron, the cool strength of the pillars, and she felt a deep, resonant sense of safety. She felt that the tower was looking back at her. Over the next 3 years, Erika's life revolved around Paris. She didn't just visit the tower, she courted it. She would spend hours sitting on its beam, touching the cool metal, talking to it, and finding a sense of peace that no human relationship had ever provided. To Erika, the tower was masculine, ancient, steadfast, and completely reliable. It wouldn't lie to her. It wouldn't leave her. It stood solid against the changing tides of the world. And in 2007, she decided to make it official. In a private commitment ceremony attended by a handful of friends who tried their best to understand, Erika pledged her life to the structure. She legally changed her name to Erika Eiffel. When the media caught wind of the story, it spread like wildfire. The headlines were brutal. Late-night talk show hosts made her the butt of their jokes. Tabloids painted her as a circus act. But the real heartbreak didn't come from the media. It came from the object of her affection itself, or rather, the keepers of it. The staff and security at the Eiffel Tower began to recognize Erika. Because of her public declaration of love, she was monitored. Eventually, she was banned. She was banned from leaning against the structure or interacting with it in the intimate, quiet way she used to. The city of Paris saw her love as a liability, a piece of bizarre performance art that defaced a national symbol. Imagine the psychological toll of that. Your spouse is visible to the entire world, plastered on postcards and movies, but you are legally barred from touching him. You must stand behind a barrier, watching millions of tourists climb over the body of the entity you love, entirely unaware of its soul. Erika Eiffel eventually had to move on, not because of her feelings changed, but because the pain of the separation was too great. She later found solace in another structure, including a bridge in Germany, continuing her life as a prominent advocate for the objectum sexuality community. She has spent years trying to explain to a skeptical public that her love doesn't hurt anyone. It isn't a sickness, it's just a different way of experiencing the architecture of existence. I live in a world that defines love by a very strict set of parameters. Two humans, matching timelines, conventional expressions, but stories like Erika's force me to look at the world around me and wonder if love is ultimately about finding safety, meaning, and a sense of belonging. Who am I to say that a tower can't hold a heart? So if you ever feel like your love life is complicated, just remember at least your partner probably does not require planning permission, tourist barriers, or structural inspection. Erika's love story may sound impossible at first, but it reminds us that love can be tall, silent, made of iron, and still somehow emotionally unavailable. Well, up next, we cross the ocean to Colombia, where a man's family is entirely made of cloth and thread. Until then, look a little closer at the world around you. You never know who or what is waiting to be loved. Now let's dive right into our second episode. I call it Stuff with Love. Christian and the Ragdoll Family. When the search for love goes from swipe right to so tight. Now I know loneliness can make people do unusual things. Some people download dating apps. Some buy a dog. Some start going to the gym and telling everyone it's for mental clarity. But Christian Montenegro took a slightly different route. He created an entire family out of fabric. And while they may sound like the world's most intense craft project, I find something strangely fascinating about it. After all, no one in this household argues about what to watch, forgets anniversary, or leaves socks on the floor. The emotional baggage, however, is very much carry-on size. Loneliness is a physical weight. It sits in the chest. It hollows out the rooms of a house. Most people react to extreme loneliness by searching. They join apps, they go to bars, they adopt pets, or they look for a spark in the eyes of another living creature. But what happens when the search yields nothing? What happens when the social world rejects you, or when the trauma of isolation becomes so heavy that your mind decides to simply manufacture the company it needs? Today, I traveled to Bogota, Colombia, to meet Christian Montenegro. Christian is a young man whose social media profiles look, at a glance, like those of a proud family man. They are photos of birthday parties, dates at local restaurants, and the chaotic joy of raising young children. But if you look closer at the photos, the smiles on his family's faces never change. Their eyes are made of black buttons. Their skin is a pale beige felt. Their limbs are stuffed with polyester filling. This is the story of a man who refused to be alone and the fabric family he built to save himself. To understand Christian, you have to understand the profound isolation that precedes his creation. By his own accounts, Christian had suffered through years of romantic rejection and deep-seated loneliness. He felt invisible in a bustling city of millions. The human dating world felt cruel, unpredictable, and entirely out of reach. So Christian took control. He didn't want to meet someone. He made her. Her name is Natalia. She is a life-sized rag doll. Christian carefully constructed her from fabric, yarn for hair, and marker lines to define her features. To anyone walking down the street, Natalia is a crude mannequin. But to Christian, the moment her assembly was complete, she became a living entity in his reality. He began taking Natalia everywhere, and I don't mean keeping her in the house. Christian wrapped his arms around Natalia's fabric waist and walks her down the busy sidewalks of Bogota. He takes her on public buses, propping her up against the seat next to him, paying for her fare. He sits with her at restaurants, ordering 2 plates of food, gently whispering into her yarn ear while onlookers stare, film with their phones, or cross the street to avoid them. In Christian's mind, Natalia offered something no human woman ever had: unconditional acceptance. She couldn't leave him. She didn't judge his flaws, and she was entirely, beautifully present. For a time, it was just Christian and Natalia, a man and his doll against the world. But a traditional life, in Christian's view, required growth. It required a family. Soon, the residents of Bogota watched as Natalia's appearance changed. Christian announced that Natalia was pregnant. He documented the pregnancy on TikTok and Facebook, posting photos of Natalia with an increased amount of stuffing in her midsection. The story shifted from eccentric local curiosity to an international viral phenomenon when Christian posted a video of the birth. In the video, Natalia is lying on a bed. Christian, visibly anxious, acts as the midwife. From beneath the sheets, he produces a smaller rag doll, a baby boy he named Lady. A short time later, two more doll children were added to the family dynamic. Christian wasn't playing a game. He wasn't a performance artist pulling a prank on social media for clout. The emotional intensity in his videos shows a man entirely invested in the reality of his fatherhood. He celebrates their birthdays with real cakes, buys them new clothes, and tucks them into bed every single night. He was providing a life for them, and in return, they were providing a purpose for him. The line between a private coping mechanism and a public health concern blurred drastically in 2023. Christian posted a video that sparked widespread outrage and debate across Colombia. In the video, an actual city ambulance is parked on the street. Inside, a real paramedic is attending to Natalia, who is lying on a stretcher. Christian is filming, his voice trembling with genuine panic and tears. He tells the medical professional that Natalia has a severe headache and is losing consciousness. The paramedic remarkably plays along. He checks the doll's non-existent pulse and reassures a sobbing Christian that they are doing everything they can to stabilize her. When the video went viral, the public's reaction was fierce. People were furious. In a city where emergency resources are stretched incredibly thin, where real people wait hours for an ambulance, a paramedic was spending time treating a collection of fabric and stuffing. The health ministry launched an investigation. But beneath the anger, a deeper question emerged. What do you do with a man whose grief and psychological reality are so profound that a threat to a doll feels like a matter of life and death? Christian wasn't trying to waste city resources. He was experiencing a genuine crisis because in his universe, his wife was dying. Today, Christian continues to live his life with Natalia and their children. The internet comments alternate between mockery and deep concern for his mental health. Psychologists often view his behavior as a severe manifestation of delusion companion syndrome, a coping mechanism pushed to its absolute limit to stave off a psychological break from extreme isolation. It is easy to laugh at Christian Montenegro. It is easy to look at the videos of a man hugging a rag doll on a public bus and dismiss it as internet madness. But if you look past the felt and the yarn, you see a raw, unprotected look at the human need for connection. Christian built a wall of fabric to protect himself from a cold world, and inside that wall, he is no longer alone. Christian's story is strange, yes, but it is also strangely familiar. We all build little versions of comfort when the world feels too cool. His just happens to have button eyes, yarn hair, and a family WhatsApp group that is probably very quiet. If nothing else, this episode proves that loneliness can be powerful, imagination can be louder than reality, and love sometimes arrives pre-stuffed. Up next, we leave the physical world behind entirely to explore a love story that travels across 300 years of time into the spirit realm, ending in the world's most unusual divorce. Episode 3. Dead Men Tell Vows. The Ghost of Private Jack. For my final episode, I am leaving normal relationship problems behind. No awkward first dates, no unread messages, no we need to talk. This time, the love interest is a 300-year-old pirate ghost, which does raise some practical questions. Who pays on date night? Is haunting considered quality time? And if the relationship ends badly, do you block him or do you call an exorcist? Amanda Teague's story proves that some romances don't just come with baggage. They come with fog, rum, maritime law, and possibly a cursed energy bill. We all felt the presence of someone who isn't there. A memory lingers in an empty chair, a phantom scent of perfume in a hallway. We tell ourselves it's just nostalgia, the brain playing tricks on us because we miss the touch of someone who has passed on. But if the person you miss isn't someone from your past, what if they are someone from history? A person who died centuries before you were born, but whose spirit decides to anchor itself directly into your life. Today, I escaped the boundaries of the physical world entirely. I am looking at a relationship that didn't just cross cultural lines, but crossed the ultimate boundary, the veil between the living and the dead. This is the story of Amanda Teague, a woman from Northern Ireland who bypassed the entire living population of the earth to marry a 300-year-old Haitian pirate ghost. It's a tale that sounds like a gothic romance novel, but is played out in the modern legal system, in international waters, and eventually in a terrifying spiritual battle for survival. Get ready, things are about to get weird. Amanda Teague was a normal woman living in County Down, Northern Ireland. She worked as a Captain Jack Sparrow impersonator, a fun twist of the irony given what was about to happen. She was a mother, a former bridal designer, and someone who had been through traditional human marriages that left her feeling unfulfilled. She found human relationships complicated, messy, and often lacking a true soulful connection. Then, in 2014, while lying in her bed, Amanda felt a presence. Now, many people would panic, call a priest, or assume they were dreaming, but Amanda had always been spiritually open. She didn't feel fear. She felt a profound wave of energy. The presence began to communicate with her. It didn't speak in an audible voice, but bounced off the walls. But through a form of telepathic intuition, a clear stream of thoughts that weren't her own. The spirit identified himself as Jack. He told her he was a Haitian pirate who had been executed in the early 1700s for his crimes on the high seas. He described his life, his appearance as dark-skinned with black hair, and his long solitary journey through the spirit realm. What started as a spiritual curiosity quickly turned into a late-night conversations. Amanda found herself rushing home to sit in an empty room just to communicate with Jack. They talked about philosophy, life, and the universe. Within months, the nature of the communication shifted. Amanda wasn't just talking to a ghost, she was falling in love with him. To Amanda, Jack was more attentive, romantic, and loyal than any living man she had ever met. They went on dates. She would buy a glass of wine for herself and leave a shot of rum on the opposite side of the table for Jack, watching the energy in the room shift as he arrived. By 2016, the relationship had progressed to the point where they wanted to make a commitment. Jack, through a spiritual medium, proposed to Amanda. But how does a living woman marry a 300-year-old spirit? You can't exactly walk into a local registry office and sign a certificate with invisible ink. Amanda, resourceful as ever, found a loophole. In 2018, she chartered a boat and sailed into international waters off the coast of Ireland. She brought along a small group of open-minded friends, a spiritual medium to channel Jack's vows, and a legal register. During the ceremony, the medium spoke for Jack, saying, "I do." Amanda placed a wedding ring onto a physical prop that represented her phantom groom. Under international maritime law, the commitment ceremony was complete. Amanda Teague became Amanda Sparrow Large. She returned to land triumphant, telling the media that her sex life with the spirit was incredible, that her emotional bond was unbreakable, and that she had finally found the perfect husband. But the honeymoon didn't last, because in the spirit world, nothing comes without a price. Not long after the wedding, Amanda's health began to deteriorate. It started with subtle fatigue, then mysterious illnesses that baffled doctors. She suffered from sudden violent physical ailments. Her weight fluctuated wildly, and she felt a constant exhausting drain on her energy. At first, she didn't link it to her new husband, but the atmosphere in her home had changed. The comforting, warm presence of Jack had turned heavy, cool, and predatory. Amanda began to do deeper research into spiritual lore and consulted different occult experts. The consensus was terrifying. An entity from the spirit realm requires immense energy to manifest and interact with the physical world. Without a physical body of its own, it has to draw that energy from a living source. Jack wasn't just sharing her life, he was consuming it. He was a spiritual vampire. Amanda realized that the entity she had married might not even be Private Jack at all. In spiritualism, there is a concept of trickster spirits, opportunistic entities that assume the identity of whatever you desire, most just to gain your energy. The romance was a trap. Every time she felt a surge of love for intimacy, she was opening the door wider for her life force to be siphoned away. By late 2018, faced with failing health and overwhelming dread, Amanda knew she had to get out. You can't just hand a ghost divorce papers. So to end her marriage, Amanda had to undergo a formal spiritual cutting of cords, an exorcism. She worked with high-level spiritual practitioners to banish the entity from her home, her mind, and her life, legally changing her name back to Amanda Teague. After the entity was successfully removed, her health miraculously returned to normal. Today, Amanda uses her platform to warn people about the dangers of messing with the supernatural. She doesn't deny that she loved Jack. She warns that the spiritual realm operates on rules that humans are simply not equipped to handle. The story of Amanda and her private ghost is a modern cautionary tale. It shows that our desire for love, validation, and a perfect partner can sometimes lead us into the dark. We want to believe in a love that transcends death, but sometimes the dead need to stay where they belong. Amanda's story teaches us many things. Trust your instinct. Be careful with spiritual loopholes. And if your partner can pass through walls but still drains your energy, that is not romance. That is a red flag with a fog machine. Some relationships need counseling, some need distance, and some apparently need an exorcism with excellent availability. Well, that's it, folks. Thank you for joining me on Bernette's Bizarre but True Tales. Episode today was called Strange Bounds. I've traveled from the iron heights of Paris through the fabric heart of Colombia to the haunted seas of Ireland. Love is vast, love is strange, and sometimes love is downright terrifying. Until next time, folks, keep your heart open and keep your feet firmly on the ground.